Welcome to the Saturday in Athens podcast. I am your host, Seth Saunders. My normal co-host, James, is sick as a dog this week. So we have a fill-in guest that I couldn't be more excited of. Special guest for a very special week in college football. We have got Frank Lewis of House Saunders, third of his name, the eldest uncle, king of the Great Plains and the Free Staters, Cal of Casey's Pizza, Waver of Wheat, and Regent of Rock Chalk. What's up, brother?
Man, it's all good. Happy to be here. Breaker of chains, too, I think.
Yeah, all of it. So Frank is my oldest brother. He was best man at my wedding, and I have probably as many sports conversations with him as I do with James. So this will be fun. Dude, we were texting offline, man. Wild week. Just so many awesome matchups, like Red River Shootout, which is one of the greatest rivalries in all of college football, one of only 3 neutral site games in college football. A lot of intrigue with that. You know, Oregon, Ohio State in Eugene, monster game there, 2 versus 3. And then you got LSU, Ole Miss under the lights in Death Valley. I mean, just so many monster matchups, and that's not even touching all the kind of ancillary things going on. So let's start with Red River Shootout, just because it's one of my favorites. I know it's one of your favorites, and I want to be very clear that it is the Red River Shootout, not the Red River Rivalry or the Red River Showdown, none of those things. But new kick this year, not an 11 o'clock local kick, going to be 2:30 kick. TV rules everything. But what are you looking for in that game?
A couple of things. Yeah, for starters, I am never, I am never like anti-corporatism. I want everybody to get every dollar that they can. And, I'm not one to talk about cancel culture or wokeness, anything like that. But man, this is the one thing where I draw the line on sports tradition. Like, it is the Red River Shootout.
Correct.
All right. Like, it will always be that. Let's stop with this. Okay. Texas State Fair. It's going to be hotter than it's ever been, which is saying something on the Red River. So it's going to be exciting. Texas is, I believe, far and away the more talented team. We've seen that demonstrated on the field. But that is, you can throw all of that stuff aside when you get into this rivalry. Venables will have the boys ready to play. A lot of people may not realize this, but like Oklahoma will pack the stadium. Okay. They will travel better than Texas. And the population isn't comparable, but the alumni base, the fan base for Oklahoma is as true of a blue blood as there is in America. And so Oklahoma will challenge in this game, I believe. All right. But I just think Texas is too much. I think Sark's doing great there. They got 2 of the best quarterbacks in the game, most important position. So I think Texas has got too many Joes. But the X's and O's is going to be tight.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. And you bring up a couple of points that I think it'll spin on. Number one, most important position on the field, Oklahoma's got a problem. I mean,
yes,
they don't have a guy under center. And, people can argue one way or the other, but they don't. It just is what it is. They've got an offense problem, which is not normally what we're talking about when we talk about Oklahoma historically,
right.
Especially in the last 20 years. Brent Venables going to have his defense locked and ready to go. I don't think anybody questions that or has an issue with that. And here's the other thing, right? Part of the quarterback problem may be that I think they were in like the survey psychology class this week trying to get wide receivers. I mean, they got nobody to play wide receiver. The whole darn room is injured. So it's tough. And on the flip side, Texas got 2 quarterbacks that could start anywhere in America. So like just an embarrassment of riches on their side. And then, man, you brought up Sark, and look, I don't know that there's a guy calling plays across America that does a better job than he does schematically. I just think he's the ultimate advantage. And I do think, too, that given his story, given his hiccups at past stops and the things he dealt with in his personal life, I think he's evolved a lot as a coach in a really good way. And I think, I don't know, he just seems a lot more confident, a lot more rooted in what they're wanting to do. And they are a wagon. Like from
They
a
are.
roster perspective, they're a
There's no
wagon.
question. They could truck stop them early and often, and it could get out of hand. And I could go grab a couple beers before the game's over. But man, like you and I often say, just don't let them hang around. Like
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
let Venables hang around, like Gator blood's gonna get you, baby. And that's what I'm interested in. If they can put them away, if they can put them away quick, often, early, like that'll prove to me like Texas is legit for the whole thing.
Yeah. And, I do think there's some intrigue around a couple things. And one is Quinn Ewers is coming back off injury. And so how crisp is he coming off of that? And I think probably two, unquestionably, this is the best defense they will have faced all year. And certainly the best, I think, defensive mind they will have faced all year. Look, I think as the year progresses, that Michigan win probably looks less strong just because Michigan's not the Michigan that we've come to know under Harbaugh. And again, they've got an offense problem too. But man, to your point, if Oklahoma can play well on D and kind of hang around, and Texas makes some mistakes, man, that Cotton Bowl, some wild things happen in that stadium.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know, man. This is one of those where you and I both, I think it's on our list of games that we want to go to and experience in person, and State Fair and corny dogs and funnel cakes and the whole deal, man. Fried Oreos, like all of it. Like this is one of those games where if you love college football, inherently you have got to love everything about this game. Like this is everything that's right about college football. So,
Yeah.
dude,
It's not
I
a
just
conference for me anymore, so I can just go down and thoroughly enjoy it. And so I really look forward to the opportunity to go see it.
dude, let's talk about that. How weird is it to say that these two teams are no longer in Southwestern Conference, in the Big 8, in the Big 10, in the Big 12? I mean Big 12, none of it. Like SEC, it still doesn't feel right to me in a lot of ways.
Yep.
But
First ever SEC meeting between the two.
yeah, it's really, really bizarre, man. I mean, look, it's great for the conference. I'm not complaining about that. It's just if you're a college football purist, it's a weird thing to say. SEC matchup, Texas and Oklahoma. Yeah. So okay, so I do want to talk to you about this too, about this game, and then we'll move on. But dude, Texas, 15 points is what I saw last. 14 and a half, 15 points. I know all the numbers say that that's like a slam dunk, but that feels like a weird number for me with this pair.
Yeah. You got to be a strong believer in that. You got to take the over, and you got to take the 15, and you got to give the 15. I would not be willing to do. I am not willing to do that. I've seen this game too many times. History just don't let me believe it's going to be a skunk, but we will find out, and I'm interested to find out.
Yeah, you and me both. Well, look, here's the other one. This is the one most people probably would have led with and have led with all week, but monster game at Alton Stadium today. I mean, you got Ohio State and Oregon, 2 versus 3. I think it's both teams that people thought would be in this position, and they've lived up to their end of the bargain. I would say from probably an eye test perspective, Oregon maybe not where folks thought they would be, especially on the offensive side of the football. And then it's coming out this morning and some last night that their best player, not just their best defensive player, but best player, Jordan Birch, may not play today. That's a problem if you're a Ducks fan. But still a great matchup. Ryan Day, Dan Lanning. What are you looking at in this game, and kind of where do you feel like it's going to go?
Yeah, boy, this should be fantastic. Like New Year's Day after game, like this should live up to the hype. Yep. Two of the best young coaches in the game. Two of the most well-funded athletic departments in America. I think that we undersell how good 60,000 people can get on you in Eugene. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. I hate to see not all 22 line up against each other.
Yeah.
That takes away some of it for me. I think that Ohio State has all the makings of a national championship profile. Okay. Having said that, this is the way that I feel. All right. I think Dan Lanning is the best young coach in college football. I think that he is going to be the shining star of the Nick Saban, Kirby Smart coaching tree. I think he's going to win multiple national championships. I don't know if it's going to be at Oregon, but I think that it damn sure could be. And I think the fan base is really ready for it to be. I think he can get any talent in there. He's got the money, he's got the facility, he's got the draw. He's going to get anybody in there, and I think he will. I don't know if this is the year, but the way things have played out the last few weeks, I don't think anybody knows what lays ahead of us this year. So I used to always stack up coach versus coach in a college football matchup, and I would give the edge to Coach Lanning in this one. I just love him that much. But I do think it's transforming into a player's game, and I think that there's a hell of a lot of talent on the Ohio State side of the ball. If he can't go, if he can't start all 22, I'm probably looking a little bit more towards the Buckeyes, but boy, it pains me to say that.
Another weird thing to talk about. This is a conference matchup. This is a Big Ten matchup, which normally we would have only seen in Pasadena. And now we're seeing it week 7, which look, if you like big matchups, it's great. Right. And I think that's the beauty of the way the structure has gone now, is that you're getting more of these premier matchups in the regular season. You know, I am one who's been very open. I love the 12-team playoff structure. I think it's great. Everybody says, oh, it diminishes the regular season. I'm like, dude, no way. Like, look, if you're saying that, then you're saying that no NFL regular season matters. And people still tune in for that. And everybody still seems to care week to week what happens in those games. I don't see how it's much different here. Plus, I think it gives a lot more teams access to the narrative. And so, like, dude, we're going to talk later in this show about Boise State and UNLV and JMU and Army and Navy. And in reality, although they're all great stories this year, they wouldn't be relevant to the end game in years past. Guess what? Now they are. And so, like, dude, that's beautiful. I love that. I love the access piece of it. And, dude, this game it's cool to me for a number of reasons. I told you I was years old when I learned that Chip Kelly and Ryan Day grew up in the same small town in New Hampshire, Manchester, New Hampshire, went to the same high school, both played quarterback there. And then when Chip Kelly was offensive coordinator at UNH, Ryan Day was one of his first ever quarterbacks that ran his system when he was innovating and changing the offensive game in college football, which how I missed that, I'm like an idiot, but I just think it's so cool, man. And I think it's cool that because of the way the college landscape is now, Chip Kelly goes, man, I'm leaving a head coaching job because I got to do all this crap I don't really want to do, nor is the reason I got into coaching. And I'm going to go coach. So I'm going to go be the OC for my former quarterback. Man, I just love that. And apparently, man, they're like super tight, like have leaned on each other over the years professionally. And so I love that kind of subplot to all this with Chip going back to Oregon, because in a lot of ways, man, culturally, I know he wasn't the head coach that kind of got the engine running that way, but when you think of the proliferation of Oregon football, if Chip Kelly is not the first name that comes to your mind, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, he changed everything about the way we run offenses across the country and like brought essentially a basketball mentality to offensive football collegiately. Like, we're just going to have as many possessions and as many reps at this as we can. And I love all that. And boy, does he have weapons to play with. A guy at quarterback that you're familiar with, former K-State quarterback Will Howard. He's got Jeremiah Smith, who, as much as we've talked about Ryan Williams and what a freak he is, I mean, dude, Jeremiah Smith is another one where the alma mater plug in the program should say Xavier School for the Gifted. Just an absolute mutant at wide receiver for that team. And then you got transfer Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss. Like, dude, they got weapons everywhere offensively. And, like, dude, Jordan Burch done played it. That's a problem, because I think one of the ways you disrupt all that is create pressure. And he's your pressure guy. And so, like, that's a big storyline to me. But to your point, and I'm so glad you said it, and I'm biased, so my opinion on it don't really matter. Dan Lanning is the guy. Like, he has the gravitas. He has the story to tell kids in a living room. Like, dude, we're talking about a guy who was coaching high school ball and like drives to Pitt and essentially says, I'll sweep the floors if you guys just let me get in the building and like learn the game and start to get reps. And so, like, you telling me he can't sell that when he goes in living rooms, like talking about grinding it out and doing it. And like, dude, he's awesome. And like, also think he's smart, right? Like having the camera come in the locker room for his pregame speech when they played Colorado last year, when he knew the eyes of America are on his program. Homie, that's chess. Everybody else playing checkers. Okay. And like,
Yeah.
you know, and having Phil Knight's money ain't a bad thing.
You know where he's right. You know where he's from. So, you know, it pains me to love him so.
Yes.
But, I mean, it's just no denying it for me. He is the head of the class of the next generation, and the next generation is here. And, you know, I would make a short list of offensive minds in the game of college football. And it would be a peculiar list, a frank list. But
yes.
It would take for granted the fact that Chip Kelly defined the whole list. All right. Like, you named all of those kids who are phenom top, you know, guys that are going to play on Sunday. Good plan on Sunday. And, you know, we're blessed to be able to watch them play tonight. But they are who they are right now because of Chip Kelly's mastermind. Like, his innovation of how to use those guys in an offense redefined the game. And so as much as I want to underscore Coach Lanning, Chip Kelly gets my respect from an offensive mind standpoint. And he's, you know, he gets a lot of shit talked about him in a lot of corners, and a lot of it's justified. But innovations to offense, he did it. And I will not lose sight of that. Now, you brought up Will Howard. I saw both of these quarterbacks play live. You know, I don't love either one of them for necessary reasons.
No bias.
And, you know, like my alma mater had Will Howard in K-State on the ropes with a third string freshman walk-on quarterback. And so I could talk a lot of disrespect, but the fact of the matter is he just in the fourth quarter just said, I've got to stop fucking around, and put the team on his back and won the game. And I think he has the capability to do that every week, and he has better weapons than he's ever had. So I think Will Howard is a legitimate threat to make a run, to lead a team to glory. I don't know if I'd say that about Dylan Gabriel, but I like what Coach Lanning does with him.
Yeah, so I want to ask about this, and obviously it's a little different. Look, it's a regular season game, and with the 12-team piece, there's going to be access, I think, for both these programs if they go one and both win out. But just from, I think, a narrative perspective, both of these coaches have been tabbed in their young careers thus far with difficulty winning, let's just say the big one, okay?
Yeah.
Dan has had some bites at that apple in his first 2 years, had a couple, well, 3 last year. Ryan Day has obviously had problems with Michigan. And then, you know, they blow the late lead to Georgia in the Peach Bowl a few years back. And so I think both of them, that's a stigma around the two of them. And so I think this game for both of them can be a statement one way or the other. I think it's probably, I'm going to say from an urgency perspective, to me, it feels like the urgency is more there for Ryan Day than it is for Dan Lanning. I think Dan Lanning's rope, especially within the Oregon community, is quite long because they feel great about what the trajectory of that program looks like. I think Ohio State folks are itchy, and it's well known they paid a king's ransom for this roster. And so they feel like this is the year, the time is now, make it happen. And so if they go out to Eugene and get beat by Dan Lanning when they've got all these toys and high-level OC and all the things. What do you think that's going to say about Ryan Day?
Yeah, this is the double-edged sword with a blue blood. Like, he's got all the riches. He's got all the capability to land any player any day. Okay. He's got Chip Kelly as his offensive coordinator. He's got a stacked row of studs that are his coaches and analysts. And he's got the entire state of Ohio and then some, the entire Rust Belt behind him. Okay. But boy, that worm can turn quick.
Got that right.
And, we, a year ago, we were sitting in Destin, Florida, Redneck Riviera, most beautiful part of the country, watching them almost shit the bed against Notre Dame. Okay. And instantly the seat gets hot.
Yep.
And so I think that's the difference there. You got to win every damn Saturday if you're at Ohio State. And I think he rightfully should feel that pressure. I don't feel bad for him one bit. Okay. But I definitely think that he feels more pressure to win than Coach Lanning does. But I would guarantee you that Coach Lanning puts more pressure on himself. So the pressure will be internal for Coach Lanning. It'll be external for Ryan Day.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to all that. I mean, look, you're the head coach at Ohio State, especially the way the college landscape is now. It's win or they get somebody else. I mean, it just is what it is. And unfortunately, I think it's getting that way a lot of places. It's just there's so much money wrapped up across the landscape of the sport that it's like, look, man, we got to have production on the product or else this isn't going to work. And so, it's getting crazy, man. And I mean, I'll tell you this just from personal experience because I've watched it happen this year. If you're a Georgia fan and you follow the Georgia program, we obviously say this all the time, but dude, the good old days are right damn now. And people are wringing hands and up in arms because they don't look like they should look this year. And it's like, I mean, guys, we're talking about an unprecedented run of success and 2 national championships in the last 3 years and still very much in the conversation this year with everything in front of them. And dude, you would think they're, I don't even know what, Virginia Tech or something, down and out. It's a wild thing. But to your point, I think that's the pressure, right? Is the expectation is just either we win the title or it's a disappointment. And look, man, I'm all for it. Okay. Cause that's what I stood up and stomped for years when Coach Rick was there. Was like, look, man, are we pining for excellence or are we just okay with very good? And there's no wrong answer here. I just want to know, because for me, I want to be on the excellent side of the ledger. And the very good thing is, what are we doing? And so, I mean, I love it, right? I love that there's this heat and Kirby's irritated about the stadium not being loud enough, all the things. I'm here for all of it. But dude, it's just different landscape now. And so, I mean, dude, I think there's another matchup that falls square in that. Look at LSU Ole Miss, okay? You got a program, I think, historically, that the expectation is we're going to be excellent in LSU. And so Brian Kelly goes there, leaves another, which for me, dude, he left an unbelievable job. How do you leave Notre Dame? I still can't wrap my brain around that. But he did, and that's cool. But a lot of pressure in that job, man. And I would say thus far, that fan base disappointed in what they've done from an on-field product. And on the flip side, you got Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, who, dude, Ole Miss historically, I know they had Archie and I know Eli was there and whatever, but outside of that, that's kind of it, right? I know Hugh Freeze recruited and they did a couple things, but I wouldn't say that's a legacy program or a program where it's oh yeah, blue blood. But now they kind of can be in that conversation. Disappointing loss against Kentucky. Lane is obviously out there and brash. What do you see from those 2 programs as this season's moving on?
Well, I'll talk to that because it's actually, I think, could be the best game of the day, believe it or not. I want to flex back a little bit back to what you said. As you started to talk about Georgia. I am totally objective here, not like your audience who is wholeheartedly, rightfully subjective. But look, you and I don't even have to go back. I'm an old guy. I can go back to days when times were dark in Georgia football.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, for sure.
I don't
Yep.
have to go. I don't have to go back that far. Like 11, 12 years ago, you and I were at the Kickoff Classic in Atlanta, and they let Boise State beat them, and
Not just beat them.
Wasn't that. Yeah, I know. Like, it was a, it was a bad showing, but everybody just kind of swallowed it and went on about their business, and next week was next week, and like that would never happen now. Like, the concept of anyone other than Alabama coming in to the stadium in Atlanta and beating Kirby Smart is unthinkable. Okay. And so I think that is glorious for Kirby Smart. I think it's glorious for all of the fan base, the Georgia Bulldogs. I think that there was too much acceptance of them not being in the 4 teams that were selected last year, because prior to losing to Alabama, they were head and shoulders better than everybody else. I mean, head and shoulders better than everybody else, and everybody was afraid of them. And then all of a sudden, they just disappeared from the conversation. The conversation flipped to Florida State. I think the same is true this year. All right, like they are a couple of bounces and calls away from being 3, which is unheard of. And they are a couple of bounces away from being head and shoulders above everybody this season. Okay, so when you just give them carte blanche, the ability to compete for a chance on their home field, run the table, potentially dodge Alabama, but nonetheless get Alabama on a neutral site, everyone should be afraid of a 12-team playoff that includes the Georgia Bulldogs. Like, I haven't seen a program out there that shouldn't be afraid of them. And that's this season with the talent they have on the field this year. So I think the 12-team playoff just totally runs right into their wheelhouse of how they walk away as national champs.
Yeah, man, I think the expanded field's great, right? Because if you expanded it back to when Kirby started, there would have been 1 year where they weren't in a 12-team playoff, and that was year 1. And so, like, I think from his perspective, man, and from the program perspective, it's outstanding, because all you can ask at the end of the day is a chance to dance. That's all you want. And so, that's the beauty of it. Even with the meat grinder of a schedule they have this year, I still think they got as good a shot as anybody to get in and go roll. But you said this earlier, this is as wide open a college football season as I can remember in a long time. And look, man, maybe Ohio State goes out and lays the hammer on Oregon tonight, and we all start having a different conversation and go, wait a minute. This Ohio State team, they might be scary. But, like, until we see that, I'm still of the opinion that, dude, anybody can win it. Like, it's just
yes.
There's nobody you look at and go, dude, ain't nobody beating them. Like, it's just not, it ain't situated that way this year. I think, dude, we live in a world last week where Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. I still can't.
That's right.
I can't I can't wrap my brain around that. Like, homie, they walked the goalpost down Broadway and chucked it in the river, which is
3
awesome.
miles.
3 miles.
3
I know,
miles
dude.
They carried it.
Also, I saw they covered it in like 56 minutes, which, homie, I mean, that's got to be like one of the greatest rucks in the history of American rucks.
Much respect.
Much respect.
Much respect to the smart kids in Nashville. They brought it. All right.
Yes,
they took full advantage of their moment.
They sure did, man.
You talked about Ole Miss LSU. I want to flex back to that real quick. Like, a guy that does not follow me, I'm not going to get any love for highlighting him, but there's a Twitter football statistician that I love, Parker Fleming, and he comes out with lots of beautiful graphics. And one of the ones he showed, I think that was this week. I'm pretty sure it was Monday this week. It was just a quadrant of offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. And like to the far right of the chart is all the real guys. All right. Like the numbers tell us the far right is who are the true contenders. And he kind of circles, who are the real contenders. And at the top right quadrant there is Lane Kiffin. And so like, I don't want this to be undersold. Losing to Kentucky sucks, but one of you guys do it every year. All right.
Yeah.
One of you guys like prop up Mark Stoops every year. All right.
Yeah.
And this year, just having Lane got caught with his pants down. Well, I don't want to say that. That's a bad euphemism to use Lane Kiffin. But he just happened to trip. He'd be the one that tripped. That with a 12-team playoff, like that doesn't mean anything. And
right. Yep.
And that's what I love about the expanding the playoff is that Mark Stoops is not going to knock the wheels off of Lane Kiffin's season. And those boys in Oxford still got a shot. And I think that they really do. So I don't really, and LSU is my almost alma mater. And I love Death Valley. I think great place, one of the greatest places to watch a sporting event in all of the world. But I don't know that it's necessarily going to be that close tonight. I think that it's really a showcase for Lane Kiffin on both sides of the ball, for the little school in Oxford to show up and show out and turn into showtime. And that's what I expect. So I could be totally off base on that. But that's what I'm looking for tonight.
I have no feel or idea about what's going to happen in that ball game tonight, but I think we can both agree on this. If you were holding a 12-team uniform playoff every year, these two teams are in it, and there's no questions, okay? I mean, just electric uniform games from both of them. Like, I know it's like almost sacrilege to talk about LSU not wearing the yellow bonnets because it's just so iconic, but homie, when they rock the white lids with the tiger on it, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And for me, man, I don't know why the powder blues are not Ole Miss's just regular. Oh my God. Like so fresh. And so, yeah, man, I love that. They showed the paint. They showed Tiger Stadium painted up this morning. Also, in the running for me, it may not even be in the running. It may just be the winner. It's the best midfield painting in America. The Tiger Eye is, come on. Also, I just think culturally, this is something we should experience together. I need a Baton Rouge Saturday tailgate like I need air. Like, those people get after it. Like, I need it. I need it bad, man. I need some jambalaya. I need all of it. Like, just give it to me all day.
Yeah, it's funny. I may piss off half your fan base for this, but like, drinking beers with 100,000 Catholics doesn't seem like a great time to me normally. But but when you put them under parish law, it becomes a whole different equation for me.
Different animal.
Those are my people. Yeah.
So okay, now something James and I have gotten into this year is, dude, Underdog Fantasy. You familiar with Underdog Fantasy at all?
I am not.
Oh, it's incredible. You got to check it out. Okay. It's like, it allows you to look at different kind of player values. So for example, let's say we're watching the Texas-Oklahoma game today. You could look at like, is Quinn Ewers going to go higher or lower 2 touchdowns?
Time out. Their spokesperson is Coach Belichick.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
I am familiar.
Dude, it's awesome. Okay. So we've gotten super into it. We love it. And like, it's one of those things where even if it's not a dogs game, we can kind of have one of these player values higher or lower mixed in going, or maybe one game we got 3 or 4 working, and it's just a great way to watch a game. And so anyways, I would highly suggest it. And dude, if you wanted to try it, man, making picks on Underdog is straightforward and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple to use mobile app or underdogfantasy.com. Sign up with promo code SAP and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That is Underdog Fantasy, promo code SAP, to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. You must be 18 or older, unless you are in Alabama or Nebraska. Then you must be 19 or older. You must be 19 or older in Colorado for some games, and then 21 or older in Massachusetts and Arizona. You must be present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. This offer is void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. If you're in Arizona, that's 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. If you're in New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NEW YORK, or text HOPE New York 467-369. So yeah, some spicy things on the board today we may look at, especially in that Oregon-Ohio State game. But I think you bring up some good points about a lot of things as it pertains to where things have situated this year in college football. And we've talked a lot about the blue bloods, I would say, thus far. And I want to give a little shine to some of the little guys. And one of the games that already happened this week is my boy James' alma mater, James Madison, Madison College, just dump truck Coastal Carolina. The boys are undefeated after Kurt Cignetti had left and gone to Indiana. And dude, that's another thing we should talk about, is what Kurt Cignetti's doing at Indiana. But man, look, JMU, and you and I are both Virginia born and bred. And if somebody was asking me, what's the best college football program in the Commonwealth of Virginia right now? Like, dude, it ain't even a question. It is James Madison. It is the Dukes. And if you grew up, when we grew up with Virginia and Virginia Tech being what they were then, that seems insane to say. But I think this is another one of the beauties of the current college football landscape is, homie, we're living in a world where James Madison is in conversation for a playoff berth.
Yeah. So a couple things here. For starters, it would be blasphemy if I didn't shout out star linebacker Dan Ward, inaugural. He was starter for the inaugural Madison College Dukes. Played on the first team that ever took the field for Madison College, and so those ties go way deep for me. All right, but it's beyond they're the best football program in Virginia. They're the best athletic department.
Yes.
In the state of Virginia. Beat you name the sport, and the Dukes will show up and beat you, and they'll let you pay them to beat you at your place. All right. Mac Brown quit football. All right. He had to take it back so he could still get paid.
That's right.
But they made him quit football.
He did. He did.
They put half 100 on him in the first half. All right.
Yeah.
They are not effing around in Harrisonville. All right. So and I want to also call out my alma mater, former KU quarterback, Chesapeake High School prodigy, Ethan Vasco, starting quarterback for the Chanticleers, all right, and got run out of the stadium. So, the Dukes are not only legitimate, you better worry about them.
Yeah.
Because they will take your pay to play, they will cash it, and they will come embarrass you in your own stadium. And I think that goes for just about anybody. I mean, they're not coming up against the Blue Bloods, but they ain't scared. They put 70 on Carolina and Chapel Hill. They ain't scared, man. So I think it's just a good testament. And we didn't touch Army Navy. There's G5 schools out there that aren't scared. And I love to see it. I love to have the conversation.
Here's the other thing, man. We talked about tailgating earlier. If you want to go tailgate and have a great time with a fan base that loves their team and the alumni love their alma mater, take your behind to Harrisburg. There ain't nowhere in America that celebrates their school more than the folks in Harrisonburg. And that ain't just me saying it, okay? Game day, been there a couple different times, and they always say, Harrisonburg don't play, man. It is It's real. And I think the interesting part about JMU for people who aren't familiar with that program is from a Virginia school perspective, size wise, they're right there with being, a legitimate FBS school. And then I think the other thing is they ain't got no problems donating. Like, they have the funding and the facilities to compete and grow, and they're not done growing. I think that's the scary thing. And the more they have success, the more those donor coffers are going to fill. And so, like, this is for me, and I've been pretty open about this. People kind of hem and haw and are upset about NIL and blah, blah, blah. And, oh, the rich will get richer. And, man, I feel the opposite about it. For me, I think what it's created is opportunities for parity, an opportunity for schools to insert themselves in the conversations with kids that otherwise never would even have batted an eye at going somewhere else. And now we're going, wait a minute, I can go to JMU and make a little money and we can be good. Like, man, I love it. And I think a prime example of that is SMU. Like, SMU, okay, says we want to be in the ACC because we want to be in a Power Four, and y'all ain't even got to pay us no TV money because guess what?
Keep your money.
This NIL thing, we kind of know what we're doing. like y'all killed our program because we got so good at it. So they're just going, hey, we'll figure this out now. Like, we're players now. And guess what? They are. And so I love it, man. I think it's incredible from a parity perspective and from anybody can come sit at the table. And so, like, dude, it's fun. And I think it's great for these college towns all across America. Because here's my thing, okay? I am an unabashed Dogs fan and dog supporter. And there's nowhere on the planet I love more than Athens, Georgia. But even above that, okay, even above all that passion and fury, I am a college sports fan. And the beauty of college sports is all these towns all across this great country that on sports Saturdays or sports Friday nights or whatever it may be, dude, they become these places where people have to be. Like, otherwise, man, homie, ain't nobody going to Ames, Iowa, all right? But when the Cyclones are playing, Ames, Iowa is a bop. And, like, there's towns like that all over the country because of college sports. And so, like,
the best towns.
And so, man, it's just, that is the part of it I stink and love. Like, there is nothing better than college towns in America when events are happening. And, like, for me, one of my dreams, and we've talked about this, dude, I'd love to spend a freaking fall just going town to town, like hitting them all up, like plot it out, go experience the towns, go eat at the restaurants, go to the bars that have made them famous, like whether it's Eskimo Joe's in Stillwater, whether it's going to freaking Wando's in Madison where Jump Around spawned and started, like all the things, right? Like all the stories we hear about on game day each week. That is college sports. That is college football. And so, like, all I think NIL does is help prop all that up because now you got more talent going to these individual towns. And, dude, I just think it's going to be incredible. Now, do there need to be some parameters put around it and somebody to say, like, this is how it's all going to work? Yes. And we need to figure all that out. But, like, from a straight conceptual perspective, man, I'm here for it. And I think it's going to be awesome and exciting.
Well, a lot of people hate McAfee. I am not one of those people, but, he said last week, like, college football is the uniter in America. It's a great uniter in America. And that's what I say is, like, college football and college football towns, they are America. Like that, and so for me, doing that experience, going and soaking in, like Bourdain said, eat what the locals eat where the locals eat. That's especially true, on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning in a college town, man. It's fantastic American experience. It's unrivaled anywhere in the world.
Unrivaled, man.
But as far as the NIL thing goes, like, I'm gonna get philosophical on you. Sorry about that, but, like, it goes beyond just that. Like, we have seen in Colorado, in Kansas, and many, many other of state research institutions, like college football pushes success in college football. Pushes enrollment and endowment in the university to all new highs. Okay. And so the success of your football team is critical to research within your state. All right. That's true in Georgia, just like it is anywhere else in America. All right. And so the linchpin for endowment money, for enrollment tuition funds, driven by success on the college football gridiron. Okay. And so you can't scoff at that. You can't underscore that, no matter how elite you may feel. Okay. The driver for the dollars coming into the flagship research institutions in the United States, driven by success on the football field. Okay. And the whole dichotomy there has shifted from ensuring that we make the college football coach the highest paid public employee to now saying that little phenom kid that's playing quarterback across the country, I've got to pay that kid what he deserves to come and bring kids and bring research dollars to our institution. Okay. And so if somebody wants to get up in arms about every Power 4 quarterback in America being deserving, generating $1 million in NIL, they have no concept of the economics that are generated by a kid like that to the main flagship research institution in the state. And the ramifications for that go well beyond football, and they go well beyond football fandom. And so I never want to see a quarterback for a Power 4 program generating less than NIL, all right? Because if you're doing that, you're not being serious about what this game is.
Dude, this is a magnificent point, and I'm going to point to one city to justify every single thing that you just said, okay? After the year 2007, what do you think one of the fastest growing cities in all of these United States of America is?
Well, it certainly could be Athens, Georgia.
No reason. Let me tell you, Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
Birmingham, Alabama. You know why? What's that close to? You want to give me a geography lesson here? What college town is Birmingham close to? Little place called Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, we all know where it is, man.
So, like, dude, we're talking Nick Saban effect and Alabama football effect. How they literally changed the economics of one of their flagship cities in their state. And guess what was driven by that? Their hospital system. So, right. Like, dude, man, I'm so glad you bring that up, because I do think that's a piece of the conversation just doesn't get talked about. It's like, oh, yeah, this is something these crazy people follow and get into, but football doesn't matter. And okay, look, man, if you want to have that opinion, that's your prerogative. But like, the dollars and cents matter, and what these programs mean to not just the towns that they're in and the kids that go there and the alumni, but the states that they reside in, man. It's unbelievable. And so, like, I also think too, to your point, if you take these schools out, if you took KU out of Lawrence and out of the state of Kansas, what does it do to the profile economically of that state? And like, it's the same thing all over the country, man. For some states, and I think this is mostly true too, the farther you get west of the Mississippi, dude, you take those schools out. Think about Nebraska, man. You take Nebraska out of Lincoln, and like, I don't know, man. It ain't the same, okay? And so I love that you bring that up, because I think it's so important, and I think the narrative has gotten shifted so far opposite that. The other thing, and I heard some guys talking about this, maybe it was the Pivot guys on their podcast talking about, can you imagine what certain guys would have made in college that then never went on and had any professional success? And so that's the thing I love about it, man, is that, and dude, you're the one that made this argument, and I've said it 1 bajillion times on this show, but homie, if I'm an elite trumpet player at University of Georgia and the New York Philharmonic asks me to come play and says they're going to pay me $20,000 this summer,
bye.
I ain't got to ask nobody. I get to go do it and collect my check, and you put it right in my bank account, and I still got my scholarship playing for the Redcoat Marching Band at UGA. What's wrong with that, right? And so I love that these kids are getting to capitalize on their value. And like, we're talking about, for some of these kids, man, you're changing, it's generational money. And like, I am never, ever going to be upset because to your point, you've said this for years and years and years. Like the point of going to college is to change your life.
Yep.
And so like, why are we bemoaning a child going to college and capitalizing on their gifts and making money for it to provide and change the lives of themselves and their family? Like, homie, we should be, I mean, up on the rooftops, elevating and shouting how excellent that is for these kids and for their families. And so like, yeah, man, I this is one of those things I will never be convinced that this is a bad thing that we're paying kids. And look, I'm not saying there's not layers to that argument, okay? I thought the Matthew Sluka thing, the way all that played out, stunk out loud, right? And I thought it stunk out loud, not from him wanting to get paid what he was promised, okay? That's a whole different conversation, and obviously all that could have been handled differently. What bothered me about that whole deal was I don't love what we've seen this year, which is I've made a commitment that I'm going to play for this team, and it's not just a money thing, right? There's 90 other guys that are in the family with me now. And now I do think it's becoming okay to go, nope, I don't care about that. I got to take care of me first. That part of it, I have a problem. I have a problem accepting that and falling in love with that. I don't like that, right? Like I do think there's something to be said for loyalty and honoring commitment to the people that you're with, because this isn't, the argument I've always stood on, and I think you have too, is look, man, if the coach can leave tomorrow, I can leave tomorrow. And I'm cool with that, right? But I do think there's something different when it's your teammates, because I don't want my kids to go, hey, if it's not going right for me, I'm out, right? Like I don't want that to be the model. And so I think that's something to wrestle with. And I'm never going to decry a kid making a decision that's best for him. And Matthew Sluka thought that's what's best for him, okay? And his family and all those things. But it was tough to watch a kid walk away. Dude, we're seeing it at Alabama. Defensive tackle this week says, I'm out, man. I'm on a red shirt. I think, who was the other one? There was somebody, Shane Beamer had a guy. Dude, he was their leading tackler last week. Came in and said, I'm on a red shirt.
Yeah, but see, this is nothing new. And, I'm gonna give a KU example because that's my school. But 2019, Khalil Herbert did this at KU. This is pre-NIL. This is pre-transfer rules. Like after 4 games, and, he had 100+ yards against BC and lit it up on national primetime TV. KU put 50+ on Boston College in Massachusetts. And Juice Herbert said, I'm shutting it down after week 4 because you're not going to use me properly. Les Miles, you're not going to use me properly next season. You're giving the ball to Puka Williams. And so he went to Virginia Tech, led the ACC in rushing yards next year in Blacksburg. Had a great season. I don't bemoan the kid for doing that. But what I'll say is, and Sluka also has a KU tie-in. Like he made his decision based on a 67-yard foot race for him in the fourth quarter against KU. And so he made his bones, or he made his decision based around that one game. But what I think will happen, Matt Sluka is not good enough to back up that decision. All right.
Yeah.
So if you're good enough, if you're a good enough player at a good enough program to shut it down after 4 weeks and say, I'm going to get $1 million+ somewhere else, like more power to you. But I think that is all going to take care of itself in the wash, because coaches are going to say, no. Like, I'm not paying you $1 million because you ran 67 yards against Kansas. All right. Like, forget it. And so I think all of that is going to even itself out in the wash.
I think that's fair. And that's a good point. And you look, man, this is one of those market arguments, right? Like the market will bear it out. And I think that's going to start happening with the money too, because here's what I think is interesting. Okay. Is there has already been, I think, donor fatigue. And I'm not talking like at Arkansas State. I'm talking at Georgia. There has been donor fatigue around what's being asked from, hey, we need this and we need that. And I think what's going to start happening is people who are reaching in their own pocket and putting it in the pot are going to start going, wait a minute. What am I getting back for the investment, right? And so I think it does create an interesting predicament for these 18 to 22-year-old kids, because I think the pressure level starts to creep, right? Because you're going, oh, well, I'm getting paid now. I got to do X, Y, and Z. And so I think that's something to watch. But I'm interested to see how the money pool is going to fluctuate as this continues to progress, and which is why part of the reason why I bring up SMU, because what we have generally considered the blue bloods may start to shift, homie. Because, dude, part of the reason SMU is throwing their hand in the pot is they have more billionaire alumni than any school in America. All right. And that oil well ain't drying up. So they're not going anywhere. And like, Georgia's not that. Right. And so, dude, all that could change. Like, I just think we're in for some, maybe seismic is the wrong word, but could be some seismic changes across the college football landscape as it pertains to, where the resources are.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to play out, but and I don't like to make NFL to college football analogies because there's not enough likeness there. Okay. But what I do think is possible is because there's no draft, the draft is the kind of great equalizer in NFL football and professional sports. All right. I can be 3-time world champion, iconic organization in little market Kansas City because I drafted the best quarterback, the best player at the best position. All right. We don't have that in college sports. So it comes down to recruiting. And so I think that you may see an actual shift from this, 5 or 6 multi-million-dollar winning coaches to schools having to come up with a general manager position. And we see it in some sports already. We see it in some sports
it's happening.
That you have to have a general manager that manages year round for more than 1 year at the highest level, the dollars in correlation to the recruiting process. Okay. And that's transfer and high school. That just becomes the business of the football program. And like who stands on the sidelines on Saturday becomes less a part of the equation. The Nick Sabans become less a part of the equation. And the guy running the business as a general manager of who's on the sideline in uniform becomes much more a part of the equation.
Dude, I think that's an excellent point. I think that's the natural progression, how it's going to have to be, dude, mainly because of a time factor too. Like, dude, if you're the head coach of a preeminent football program, your responsibilities are so vast. There are legitimately not enough hours in the day for you to do all the things you're supposed to do. And in some ways that was before any of this, before NIL, before transfer portal. And now you're mixing that in where you're going, hey man, it's like February 5th and we've got to figure out if we've got 5 kids that are going to jump and how we're going to replace that in the market. And like all these different factors. And if they are going to jump, who do we go replace them with? And what's that going to cost us on the revenue side? And so, dude, I think that's just an excellent point that from a schematic perspective, organization, they're going to have to shift that way. Like, and I think it'll make the coaching staff better, to be honest, because like, first off, the guys need a break. We've talked about this a lot too, is if it stays the way it is, these coaching life cycles are going to shorten so dramatically. Like there will be no more Bobby Bowden. There won't be these guys that are there 40 years because they won't be able to stand it. I mean, they're just going to go, dude, I can't do this no more. Like this is crazy. And so I think they're going to have to tier it out where there is some type of quality of life for these coaches, because otherwise it's going to be unsustainable. I do want to shift because you brought up the academies, and I want to talk about Army and Navy. And we've talked about it a little bit the previous 2 weeks, but I want to dive into it a little more because we're getting to the point in the season now, brother, where there's enough statistics and enough evidence to look at to go, wait a minute, this may not be like a feel-good thing. Like these 2 football teams might be real. And I was texting with you earlier that I think the numbers thus far maybe bear that out a little more for Army than Navy. And I'm not speculating. Look, you got to go out in the field and do it. So it doesn't really matter if it's a 1-point win or a 20-point win. But I think Army's defense puts them in the conversation where, dude, they might be a problem because they got no problems scoring the football. But homie, like they're top 10 scoring defense in America, which I know that can be deceptive. But if you're this far into the season and you've given up 47 points, like something's going right. And so the AAC is not world beaters. And so both those programs, ironically, they got to go through the Irish. And outside of that, they got a shot, brother. Like it could be a real thing when we're talking about undefeated Army and or one loss Navy or vice versa. You know, like playing each other in
even more than that. So I'm low on power, so you may lose me unexpectedly here. I'm sorry about that. But I don't, especially for Navy, but maybe for Army too. I don't see Notre Dame as that terrible of a threat either. And I said that, when I talked to you earlier. Everybody's putting all the eggs in that basket because the AAC is pretty weak, especially the teams that are remaining on Army and Navy schedules. Army does go to Denton, Texas. So North Texas could be could sneak up on them because it's the week before they play Notre Dame. So that's what I look to. I don't see any speed bumps on Navy's schedule. All right. And so realistically, what could happen is they both run the table. Okay. They're undefeated and they go into the AAC championship, and one of them wins that game and gets an invite to the college football playoffs. And then they turn around and play their non-conference matchup against each other in Philadelphia or wherever it is this year. I believe it's still Philadelphia.
I think it's Baltimore this year.
Okay.
No. You know where it is? It's at FedEx Field in Landover.
Oh, God bless them.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for them. But nonetheless, the other team could win. And so, like, I have run the table. I'm in the college football playoffs, and boom, I lose to stinking Army on my way in, or I lose to stinking Navy on the way in. It's just a strange situation, but I love the chaos. All right.
Yes. It's fascinating to bring that up because that was the scenario people talked about with the 12 team was we could get a deal where Michigan, Ohio State play last game of the year. Then they play each other in the Big Ten title game, and then they play each other in the playoff. And like this in some ways is worse than that because I think everybody counts down to the Army Navy game as like this just sacred thing, right? Like one of the best parts of the season. And so for that to, for that to lose some significance would stink. But the flip side of that is, God, what a story it would be if they both trend that way and it ends up being that way. Like, homie, I think it said something like it's 1946 or something like that since they were both undefeated this late in the year. And dude, you're talking about that was when like guys for Army and Navy were still going to the Heisman Trophy ceremony.
Yeah. I mean, they were the powerhouse conferences. I mean, powerhouse programs in college football. And that was a long time ago.
So anyway, man, that has become like one of my favorite stories of the year and something to kind of watch and track. And I think it's made both matchups against Notre Dame fascinating. I'm pretty sure Navy comes off a bye going into the Notre Dame game. And dude, it's a neutral site game. I think they played the Meadowlands or MetLife, whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
And so, dude, it's going to be so fun. And I know you have probably more of a root and interest for them boys out of West Point, given your service history.
I do. I would not root for the midshipmen against anyone.
It's a go Army beat Navy household for you, not the other way.
Yeah.
I feel that.
No doubt. 100%.
Well, look, brother, I feel like there's things we didn't cover, but we did cover a whole lot, and it was awesome. And we'll have to do this again. And tell me one thing you are most excited about for today and for the rest of the college football season before I let you go.
Well, I'll speak to my conference because that's what I know, and that's where you guys probably don't put a lot of emphasis on. But underrated, exciting day in Big 12 today. You see Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards go back against the Buffs.
Mm-hmm.
Likely to see, Sanders and Travis Hunter will be the two best players in the stadium by a lot. K-State makes very few mistakes. Avery Johnson can beat you with his legs. So should be a great game.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State, West Virginia, going to be a fantastic undersold game. And those two teams are likely the two teams after Utah loses in Tempe last night. Like those are the two teams that are probably out in front. It sets up for November 30th for Armageddon being, really who goes to the Big 12 championship game. Arizona going into Provo. Arizona just been such a strange, they got the best wide receiver in college football, likely top 5 draft pick to wide receiver, but they got skunked in Manhattan. Then they go into Utah and beat the Utes. BYU been just lights out in Provo. So going to be a great Saturday in the Big 12. I'm excited about all of those games.
And then rest of the season, what's the thing you got your eye on the most?
Really how many legitimate programs come out of the SEC into the 12. I think that they're once again head and shoulders above everybody else. Realistically, they're beating the shit out of each other. But, you got 4 programs there that I think could be the last 4 standing. And for me, that's Texas, Ole Miss, Alabama, Tennessee. Georgia. I do not believe in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I think that those 4 programs really are, and Parker Fleming's statistics where bear that out. They're 4 programs that are really legitimate contenders for the finals. And I want to see how that shakes out.
And that's a crazy thing, is to think about that, to think about the access point for the SEC schools. And man, I think Greg Sankey has been a mastermind from a leadership perspective when it comes to the conference in so many ways. And however this year plays out and the future plays out, in a lot of ways, it's the piece de resistance for his leadership, like how all this has worked and how he has guided it. And don't get it twisted. He has guided it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I've talked to you about this. Homie, he read a book. He's a huge reader, right? And he's very open about the books that he reads. And he generally spends the summer reading different books. And maybe I don't know, man, maybe it was like a decade ago. Maybe it was a little closer in time than that. But he read a book about the Premier League structure for English soccer. And he became enamored with the book. And essentially, I think, saw that, hold on a minute, this is where it's all going in my sport. And it's not that it's become the Premier League. It hasn't. Okay. It hasn't become this super league and there's no relegation and all those type things. But I think he saw the writing on the wall.
It kind of has.
Well, there are real proposals out there for that to happen. Okay. And I'm not unconvinced that it won't eventually, just because I think from a money perspective, I mean, think about this, right? It all stems around them essentially forming one conglomerate, keeping all of the traditional structures in place, but it's one organizational conglomerate. Because, like, homie, if you then go to the TV companies, the bargaining power that you have and the contracts that you can get are just, oh my God, it'd be otherworldly, right? And I think at some point somebody's going to go, hold on a second.
Yeah.
There's just money that would fall off trees if we do this.
I actually think they had that conversation this week.
Probably. I do too. Yeah. They denied it, which makes me think even more they had that conversation. Yes, because essentially what you had the Lannisters and the Targaryens sitting down in the room together to have a conversation. I mean, going, okay, we could either fight over the kingdom or we can do it this way. And so, yeah, man, it's just going to be fascinating to watch. Well, I think my boy's battery died, so that's probably a good time to end it. But thank you all for tuning in this week, and we will be back next week to talk about the Dogs monster matchup in Austin. And until then, go Dogs.